but I do my absolute best to avoid listening to the nightly news. Too often, the news of the day does not make for a quiet evening, and it certainly doesn't make for restful sleep. Instead, I wait until the morning and I read the national news online, and, well, local news, I just go to a coffee shop. You can find it in town. The news reminds us that we live in a world that is filled with darkness. And that darkness is anything that draws us or our world away from God. That darkness can be a devastation that is incredibly public, but it can also be a darkness that is private, insidious, stealthy, seductive, and happens on our own time in our own lives. This year, we have watched a lot of public darkness. Homes and lives have been destroyed by the power of hurricanes. We have watched lives and ways of life destroyed by earthquakes and wildfires. And in those moments, when everyone is working as hard as they can to stop the wildfires, when everybody is working as hard as they can to restore power to islands in the Caribbean, and yet the wildfires burn and people are still without power, we have to wonder if the darkness might be winning. This year we've witnessed brave women and men naming sexual assault and harassment taking place in their workplaces. Excuse me. We know similar sorts of violence is taking place in homes throughout our community, and sadly in some of our churches. And as a process, souls are harmed silently and privately. And in those moments, darkness seems to destroy careers and souls. This year we have witnessed missiles flying from North Korea, and some fear that a police action that began 67 years ago might become a nuclear war today. Some days, it feels as though the darkness might destroy our planet. Darkness can be illness, it can be death, it can be the loss of a job or the loss of health. Darkness can be an addiction to alcohol or heroin or sex or shopping. In fact, therapists report today that the darkness of online pornography is the biggest threat to homes and marriages today. Darkness can look like bullying, and yet darkness can seem very attractive and quite innocent in the beginning. But too often, darkness seems uncontrollable. Jesus was born into a world that was literally dark. Streets were not lit at night. Roads had no light for your travels. There was no such thing as road signs. And at night, in the darkness, the wild animals and criminals ruled the night. And darkness existed then the way it does now in the 21st century. Darkness was public, it was private. Darkness was the violence that Rome brought to anyone who did not want to obey Roman rules. Darkness was the corruption of the rulers in Rome and in Israel. Darkness was the corruption of the high priest and his cronies. Darkness was poverty, illness, loss of land and livelihoods. Darkness was 4 out of 5 children dying before the age of 5. Darkness then was addiction. It was the need for persons with disabilities to beg to make a living. Darkness was women who had no fathers or husbands needing to prostitute themselves to make a living. Darkness was as pervasive in the first century as it is today. And into that immense, unfathomable darkness, a light was born. The light of God came to live with us as Jesus. Jesus, God in human form, was the Word of God. Jesus was the Word of God who came to bring the light of God into our public and into our private lives. Jesus, the light of God. Jesus, the light of God is stronger than any darkness in our lives and any darkness in our world. And that light, that amazing light of God, came to live with us on Christmas Day. And that is the light we celebrate this evening. And that is the light we can invite into our lives to overcome the darkness in our world and in our own hearts. Now, you may notice that I have never said the light of God would defeat the darkness in our worlds and in our lives. After all, we are mortal. We will become ill. We will be involved in accidents, and yes, we will all one day die. But we can let the darkness of this world defeat us, or we can turn to the light of God to overcome that darkness that wants to enfold us when bad things happen. And bad things, well, they're going to happen to good people and to bad people. It is life. We are mortal. It happens. But we can let that darkness go ahead and take over our souls. Or we can turn to the light of Jesus. We can throw our hands into the air whenever devastation comes to our lives or to our world. And we can even let ourselves believe that, yes, the darkness is going to win. Or we can turn to the light of Jesus, that light of God, to show us a way forward. Jesus is the light of God. And when we turn to Jesus, we have the opportunity to let that light shine within us. When we turn to Jesus, we have the opportunity to let the light of God shine within us so brightly that the darkness of this world does not stand a chance. Jesus, the light of God, came into this world. Jesus, the light of God, came into this world so that the light of God can live within us. That light inspires us to ask for help when the darkness is so powerful that we cannot overcome it ourselves. That light inspires each of us to reach out with helping hands when others' lives are overcome by public disaster or private pain. The light of God will never be overcome by darkness. The light of God will one day overcome all the darkness in our lives and all the darkness in our world. Because to us, a son is given. To us, a child is born. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. The light that shines in and through our lives. Now, normally, when it's time to extinguish our Christmas candles, I suggest that we make a wish, or that we offer a prayer, or we offer a blessing to another person. But tonight, you may do all those things, but I also invite us to ask the light of God, Jesus our Christ, to live inside of us. And we will soon discover, when we let the light of Christ shine in us, that that light never goes out. And in fact, that light comes to overcome the darkness. Tonight, may that light shine in our hearts, our lives, our souls, and in our world forever. Amen. Amen. We have lit all